Today we'll be learning about surface area of prisms. Earlier this week you learned about rectangular prisms. Today we're going to be looking at a little bit different of a shape, and if you notice, these look very similar to the rectangular prisms. However, on a rectangular prism it is very similar to a box, where on a box you have all rectangles. But if you notice on these three shapes, they do have rectangles, just like the rectangular prism. However, on each end, there are a different shape, and these are triangles on each end, and then we have rectangles going around the shape. So that makes this shape a triangular prism. So you might want to name that triangular prism. On the rectangular prism, we had all rectangles, but triangular, it has two triangle bases that are parallel to one another. They never touch, and they should be the exact same base. All of these shapes, if you notice, none of them are actually sitting on the actual triangle. They're all tumped over on its side. But if I were to twist my paper and stand them all up, you could possibly stand them up on the base of the triangle. It doesn't matter where your base is located, as long as you have a top and a bottom, since it's a prism, and they have to be the same exact base. If I choose this as my base, then there would be a baseline right there above it, but that's not a shape. That's just an edge to the shape. Or if I choose this rectangle as my base, that would be incorrect because there's no rectangle up here on top. Same for down here, this little suitcase. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice drawing and label the base. So if I notice, I know there's only two possible bases ever on a prism, a top and a bottom. So I would highlight with a color. I'm going to be using two different colors. That would be wise of you to use two different colors as well. You could probably ask your teacher if you do not have an extra color, or just use a pen and a pencil if that's your choice. Then you can do that as well. So I am going to shade my bases, which are a triangle, and this happens to be a right triangle because it has a right angle in the corner. Your bases should never touch. They should always be the same distance across from one another when dealing with the prism. So we're going to draw and label the base. So our first step is, if I were to look at this triangle, you can draw it where it's like slanted like this, or you can turn it where the triangle is like a right angle. It's totally up to you. If you want to draw it the way that it looks, then you can draw it the way it looks. Otherwise, I'm going to do a right angle so that I can just look at that, and I see that 6 is on the A side of the right triangle and 8 is on the B side, like Pythagorean theorem. I do not, or actually I do know my hypotenuse. Right here is 10, so I could do that as well. So I want to look at our first part of our surface area formula is to find P, the perimeter of the base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my other color, and I'm going to go around the perimeter of the base. So if I were to add up all the sides around the perimeter of my base, which you could also highlight that in color if you would like, I want to go around the shape, because surface area is not filling the shape. Surface area is going around the shape. Like if I were to cover it with yarn, I would go around it and around it and around it and around it all the way till I got to the back. So perimeter of the base, add all the sides of it. So 6 plus 8 plus 10 is 24. So I have 24 centimeters as my perimeter. P equals. Always write what it equals, just so you have it straight when it's time to plug it into your formula. Now let's start with the area of our base, because we know that if we are covering something, we might need to know the whole bottom of it in case we need to cover it with fabric or yarn or wrapping paper. Then I want to cover the area of my base as well. So my base is a triangle. We did not have to do triangular shapes when we did volume, but we did only circular. But now we have a triangle base. And the base area of a triangle, A equals half of my base times my height. Remember, half just means you're cutting it into 2 equal parts. So we want to look just at our base, and we want to find the area of the triangle. Area of the triangle. So the bottom of the triangle is 8 times the height of it is 6. And then I want to take half of it. You could take half at the beginning, or you could take half at the end. It's totally up to you. But I know 8 times 6 is 48. And half of 48 would be 24. So the area of my base is 24 centimeters squared, since it's area. It just so happens that the perimeter and the area actually come out to be the exact same number on this shape. The height of the prism. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky. If I want the height of the prism, I'm not talking about this height that was on my base. I'm talking about the whole entire 3D prism. And how you always know what the height is it's the length that connects your bottom base to your top base, whether it's sideways or up and down or diagonal, as long as it connects one end to the other end. So if I were to stand that up, that would be 10 tall. So I would say my height is 10 centimeters. If I went to find the total surface area of everything, I have a formula. S equals PH plus 2B. P stands for the perimeter around the shape. H is the height of the whole prism. And then I have 2 bases because I need to find the area of both of my bases if I want to cover all of it. So now you've already done all the hard part. Just plug in the numbers. P, the perimeter around my shape, is 24 times the height of 10 plus 2 sets of my area of my bases. And the area of the bases were 24. So I will let you fill this into your calculator, and you can write the total surface area, what it calculates to be. Since it is area, it will be S equals something centimeters squared. It's not cubed. We're not filling the shape up. It's still square units. If I wanted to find the lateral surface area, remember that just means no bases. So if I were to take this big long formula and just cover up my 2 area of my bases, the only formula I would need would be the S equals PH. S equals PH. So whatever you got right here of 24 times 10, that would be your lateral surface area. Lateral surface area. And it is also still centimeters squared. Whatever you get when you do 24 times 10, you would write that right there. Remember, lateral goes around the shape. Around the shape. Total means you cover everything. You cover everything. So let's try another one, and let's see if we can set it up. Let's draw our base. This one is still a triangular base. If I come over here with my highlighter, I do find that this is my 2 bases. It looks like those are touching, but they're really not. It's just because of, you can't see how the depth of this right here. But I do have 2 bases, and this shape is on its side, but it's still a triangular prism. All of these are triangular prisms today. If I draw my base, I could draw a triangle. It's not a right triangle because the right angle is in the middle of it instead of on the outside. So we have 8 by 8.5 and 8.5. This is an isosceles triangle. That means 2 of the sides are exactly the same and then 1 different. This invisible checkered line down the middle just means that I have an imaginary line that is my height. That is my height. This imaginary line is not really part of the triangle, but if I go to the doctor and I want to measure my height, I have to be standing completely straight, top to bottom. And this line right here is a hypotenuse. It's slanted, so I can't count that as my height. My height is actually a little bit shorter because remember, hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle that forms. So if I want to find the perimeter of my base, I would go around the shape. So I'm going to highlight that. I want to go around the shape. I do not want to look at the inside of the shape. That 7.5 is not around the outside of my shape. So I want to go around the shape. And here we go. So we have 8.5 plus another 8.5 plus 8.0. If you notice, I added 0.0 just to keep my decimals all lined up. You could also type that into your calculator. But if I add that up, that would be 10. 8 times 3 is 24 plus 1 is 25 equals my perimeter. And this was still in centimeters. So I have 25 centimeters as my perimeter. So it's just a little larger than that one going around the perimeter. If I want to do the area of my base is still a triangle. So I need to do half base height, half base height. So I look just at the base that I have drawn right here. Don't look at anything else. I would do the base is 8 all the way across my triangle times the height, which is actually in the center. I can't use the slanted height, 7.5. In this case, you could type it straight into your calculator, or you could even take half of 8, which is 4, and then if I multiply 4 times 7.5, then I would get 30. So the area of my base is 30, and that would be centimeters squared. If you notice, I'm using an A for area, but area of the base is actually the same thing as capital B, big B. These are the same exact thing, but the B just represents this is the area of the base. So you could say area, and you also could say big B, which is the area of my base. And it's still 30. The height of the whole prism, meaning nothing on the base and nothing on this base, but the whole prism from front to back, top to bottom, from base to base, one corner to one corner, highlight it, and it would be 5 centimeters tall. 5 centimeters tall. It's also a number that you have not used yet. You didn't go use it for the perimeter. You did not use it for the height of the triangle. So it is definitely the height of the prism. So now let's write our formula. Perimeter times the height plus 2 area of our bases. If I want total surface area, I do all of it. So that would be 25 times the height of the prism, which is 5, plus 2 of our area of our bases. So if you wanted to continue that in your calculator, you could type this all the way in and get your answer. It would still be centimeters squared. If I want the lateral surface area, that just means I don't want the bases. So I just cover up that part of the equation. And I only want the perimeter times the height. So perimeter times the height, that would be the 25 times my height of 5. And I multiply that out, and that will give me lateral surface area. And it's still centimeters squared. So as you can fill it in and plug it in, this just kind of shows you step by step. You can always draw your base away from your shape. It doesn't matter if it's a rectangular base, triangular, any base, even a circular base with a cylinder. You could do the same concept. You could do a circle and so on. I want you to try this one. I want you to try drawing that. You don't have to draw the triangle like smushed like that. You can draw it normal, just like we did on the last one. And I want you to try labeling it and fill in each of your parts. And then you can check with your teacher to make sure that it is correct. Thank you.